Hello readers! Welcome to my reading room where it literally looks like I'm drowning in books. I have a TBR cart that I had to push to the side because I was starting to feel claustrophobic. It's the last day of June and you guys voted for it, so we're doing the mid-year freakout tag. I probably should have written down who did the original tag, but since I didn't, I'll make sure to make note of that in the description below. So question number 1, best book you've read this year so far? That would have to be Scythe by Neil Shusterman. In Scythe, they're living in this utopian future where no one dies anymore, and to curb overpopulation, they have a community or a society of scythes that dictate who has to die, because somebody has to die. You can't just infinitely populate the world. The story begins with 2 scythes in training. Scythes are sometimes considered celebrities because they have so much power, and so it's really important to select the right people to become scythes because, one, you don't want them running around killing everybody willy-nilly, and they have to treat it with respect. I absolutely loved this world. I loved the journal entries. Each scythe is required to maintain a journal throughout the time that they serve as a scythe, and I just love what it really had to say about the human condition and how different people would handle such a position. No, really, this is a great book, and I cannot wait to jump into Thunderhead and The Toll, which should be the last book in the trilogy. It's coming out later this year. Question number 2, best sequel you've read so far? I actually didn't read any official sequels this year, but for this book, I've picked Girl Stop Apologizing. While it's not really a sequel, it is the second book that Rachel Hollis has put out, and they are somewhat connected. The first one being Girl Wash Your Face. In Girl Wash Your Face, Rachel talks about her life and some of the lies that we tell ourselves as women, and she does talk a little bit about how to combat that. But in Girl Stop Apologizing, it's more of a how-to. She breaks down steps and provides tips on how we can improve our lives and our business, and that's what we're going with for a sequel. There's a cat tail, and she's probably just gonna sit there because she likes to be in the general vicinity when I'm recording. That's so distracting. Question number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. For me, that book is 5 Midnights by Anne de Villa Cardinal. 5 Midnights is a Latinx thriller revolving around the folklore of El Cuco. I am incredibly excited about this book because that was something that I remembered from being a little kid. Now, the story takes place in Puerto Rico, and while I'm Cuban, I still was told and spooked as a child by the stories of El Cuco, and it's like the Latinx boogeyman. I went searching for stories about El Cuco and I could not believe that there were none. And so when I learned that this was coming out, I still can't even contain myself. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. For that, I'm going with Ghost Squad by Claribel A. Ortega. This is a Latinx middle grade book where main character Lucely and her best friend Sid end up casting a spell which accidentally awakens malicious spirits that wreak havoc through St. Augustine. So they need to join forces with Sid's witch abuela and her tabby cat Chunk to reverse the curse. Doesn't that sound awesome? I cannot wait. Supposedly, it has the family dynamics of Coco and the action of Ghostbusters. Like, it's just, oh my god, give it to me now. Question number 5, the biggest disappointment, and that would be The Secret Path by Christopher Pike. This is a middle grade series, and I'm only learning about it like after I bought all 12 books in the series. I will likely still finish the series, but you know what? I listened to the audiobook. I can't remember anything about that first book, like nothing. I don't remember the character names. I don't remember what they did. It was sort of like, I think there was a graveyard involved. That's all I remember. It didn't pull me in. I don't feel like it's memorable. It was very short, so I may just reread the whole thing anyway, and I'll later apologize if I end up liking it. But right now, it was disappointing, especially because Christopher Pike was one of my favorite authors as a teenager, and I used to read all his like YA horror stuff. Question number 6, biggest surprise. The biggest surprise for me was The Bullet Journal Method by Ryder Carroll. I knew I was going to enjoy this book. It's nonfiction, and of course it is written by the guy that created the bullet journal, and it blew me away. You might think you understand the bullet journal, but until you read it from the creator's mind, I don't think you fully understand what the intention was, what he was hoping people would get out of it, and how powerful it can really, really be. I purchased the hardcover book, but I also listened to it on audiobook. He did an excellent job of reading it. It's filled with inspirational quotes, and the whole point is to track the past, order the present so that you can design your future. He included so many great examples and anecdotes and stories, and even some drawings from the bullet journal community. Like, seriously, I was not expecting this book to have the emotional impact that it had on me. It made me feel full, it made me inspired, it made me excited, and it's just like, I feel like it's invaluable. If you haven't read it yet and you are even remotely interested in bullet journaling, please pick it up. I also considered doing an in-depth review about it, so if that's something that you're interested in, let me know in the comments below. Question number 7, favorite author or new to you author? For this I picked Kiersten White. I read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein at the beginning of the year, and I actually liked it a lot more than I was expecting. I would say I even liked it more than the original Frankenstein. Reading that book did make me more curious about her other books, and I do have her Vlad the Impaler retelling. I think it's called And I Darken, so I look forward to eventually reading that as well. Question number 8, newest fictional crush. Out of all the books I read this year, hands down, that would have to be Scythe Faraday from Scythe. Why Scythe Faraday? I think there was this maturity to him and this humbleness, but also this sense of morality, and sometimes doing the right thing can be really difficult, and I honor when people still choose to do the right thing despite how difficult it can be. But I think it's important. I think it's important that we continue to do the right thing morally and ethically, and I think while Scythe Faraday did make mistakes, he tried his best to do that. He also had a very human weak spot, and I love that about him. So question number 9, newest favorite character. I'd have to say my newest favorite character, and this was a little bit difficult because I'm not sure anyone like super stood out. Or really, I'm just trying not to reuse Scythe Faraday, but I would say Malachi from With the Fire on High. He was very patient and respectful and mature, and he was just a pretty cool dude. And it's nice to see guys like that, not only in books, but in YA books. And so he was cool. It's kind of sad when you're excited about like basic human decency, but anyway. Question number 10, books that made you cry. Without a doubt, the book that made me cry was A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. If you haven't read it, I would suggest reading it. I think everybody should read it, but at the same time, if you have triggers, then look for an in-depth review. It resonated with me for a couple of different reasons, but it was definitely, it was tough. It was a great read, but it was a tough one. Question 11, book that made you happy. That would be Shadow Shaper by Daniel Jose Older. This is another Latinx book dealing with ancestral magic, but for me, what I loved about it was the fact that it took place in the neighborhood where I grew up, and so that was just, it's always nice to read about things and places that you're familiar with, and that was something that made me really happy. Question number 12, most beautiful book that you've bought so far. I had not even grabbed this off the bookshelf, so I had to ask John to come bring it to me, but like I couldn't make this video and not show it to you guys. This book is so gorgeous. It's gorgeous. This is like, hold on. It's gorgeous. And so this is the front, this is the back, the spine is colorful, and then I'm going to show it to you naked because that's how beautiful it is. Like, can you believe this? I could not believe how beautiful this book was. The colors, they just, I mean, it doesn't smell like fruit, but like, I want it to. I wish it did. It looks like it should. And question number 13, the last question is, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? I would like to read Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman, which is the second book in the Scythe series. The third one is coming out later this year, so I need to have read that before I can purchase the last one. The Libri Labra Book Club will be reading God's Grave by Jay Kristoff in July. That is another book that I need to read because the third one is coming out in September. And another book that I'd like to read really soon is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I purchased it on release day and I have not had a chance to get to it yet, but I'm very much looking forward to it. Alright guys, well that's it. That is my 2019 mid-year freakout tag. What book are you most excited for this year? Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell to be notified when I upload new videos. Thanks for watching and see you next time.